Welcome to another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. It's what we like to call Monday Night Football. Welcome to another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. It's what we like to call Monday Night. Sorry, guys. Hello. All right. Let's get this show on the road. All right. Welcome to another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. I'm Wiso from Footmex Nation. This is an hour-long podcast dedicated to all things Mexican football, Mexican soccer. We have a great hour for you today. Liga MX is back on, everyone, after a weekend of no Liga MX, and it looked like everyone was just twiddling their thumbs for the whole weekend. It's now back. We also have some news. We have quite the qualifier coming up this week on Friday. It's like it's slapping you in the face. It's finally here. La Convocatoria was out. We're going to analyze Osorio's players, the call-ups, the injuries, which is now more of a story, more of news, especially with the news of a certain player that is not going to be able to play at least the Costa Rica game. We'll give you some updates on that. And obviously, America and Chivas. America with, I would think, a deserving win. A very entertaining game. We'll analyze that. And a little bit about the refs. You know, they got what they wanted. Now, how do they do? So before we start, I'm going to say hi to the guys today. We'll start with Mr. Tom Marshall in Guadalajara. Tom, how's it going, sir? Liga MX is back. We all applaud. We can actually do and stay home and watch TV or attend games for you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, bit of Chivas Veracruz over the weekend. Good stuff. Chivas top of the league, so it's good times in Guadalajara. After suffering for so many years with two pretty crap teams, at last I got a team who's like, in the title hunt and going for the Liguilla.
Definitely. All right. Hola. We also have Mr. Naib Moran in La Ciudad de Mexico. Naib, first of all, sorry your Villanova didn't win, brother.
No,
I had to bring it up in the show because I know that you're a big fan. We're talking about college basketball, if anybody know, but Naib and I keep up. How's it going, Naib?
Yeah, my March Madness was quite short this year, and it's quite sad. It lasted only 48 hours. But yeah, buenas noches, Wiso. Buenas noches, Nico. Great to have you. And buenas noches, Tom, in Guadalajara. It's an interesting moment for El Tri. It's the start of the hexagonal at Azteca, and we remember how bad the last one was. And it's important to start on the right foot because the last one we started with a 0-0 draw against Jamaica, and that was the introduction of the terrible nightmare that we lived a couple of years ago. So it's an important match against Costa Rica this Friday.
Definitely. Good to have you, Naib. And also, you might know him as the voice, I would say, the voice of Mexican football in English, Mr. Nico Cantor. Nico, how are you, sir, in Miami?
How are you, Wiso? We all are the voices of Mexican soccer in English. Don't just put me on the spot there, but thank you. Very nice. I'm very excited to get this show started. So many things to talk about. Liga MX and Mexican national team gives us, 1 hour is not enough.
Right, so we just got a 3-hour show, ladies and gentlemen. But for you, Nico, it's 10 o'clock, so I mean it'd be like 1 a.m. by the time we were finished.
It's okay. I can talk. I can ramble on. Don't worry.
Good. All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and get started. If you're already joining us on the chat, thank you. I already see a lot of you guys that are on. And we apologize. Last week, some scheduling issues. If you were traveling and we couldn't get a show going. But the honest truth is that if there wasn't no Liga MX, we were also going to protest and we were not going to come on the show. Then the producer said, you better keep doing it or we're going to cancel you. So we're back on, right? Yeah, we're back on. Saying hi to Oscar Perez, Liga MX News, TJ Leva, the M Guy, Bill Men. Lots of people on the chat right now. So go on and ask your questions and we'll be there. So let's go ahead and get started and talk about El Tri. We finally have the call-up. Never really know when it's going to come up. It's not like it's timed Thursday at 1 p.m. You should see our WhatsApp on the day that a call-up would come in. Someone's always texting, is it? Is it out yet? No, it's not. In the first minute, there goes my shirt. And it's the first minute it was out. I think Cesar or Jason was like, it's out. And we're all going in there because people have to write or they have to protect on it. But let's go ahead and talk about it. Tom, you're obviously traveling with the team. You follow the team around. Tom, your overall kind of consensus of the call-up, very expected, right? We already knew there were some players that weren't going to be on it because of injuries, but nothing new aside from the debuts. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think overall it's pretty balanced. I mean, people are always going to pick holes and stuff. I thought it was interesting. For example, Luis Reyes from Atlas over Torres Nilo. Torres Nilo's been such a stable part of the national team for so long now. And I think that's because Osorio wants a more attacking fullback and also somebody who could possibly play as a wing back or even a little bit further forward. And then, Luis Montes, that was a bit of a surprise, to be honest, especially with Rodolfo Pizarro, Eric Gutierrez not involved as well. I thought maybe that was an opportunity to, especially for Gutierrez, because he's also a left-footed player. And then aside from that, I don't know, we're seeing with the goalkeeping situation, we're seeing a continuation of, Ochoa, Talavera, and Corona. And I wonder at what point he's going to kind of blood Gonzalez or a younger keeper. And the same at the other end of the field with Oribe Peralta. But then again, you watch Oribe play against Pumas, and he gave a reminder, of exactly why, why he's still in there. So yeah, I'd say a balanced squad. I think the squad shows, especially with the experience, that how big these games are. I mean, if Mexico can get 6 points here, they've got 1 foot in Russia 2018, and I think Osorio want to get that done as soon as possible, because obviously the summer against Honduras and the United States, that's there's 2 friendly games before that, and then the Confederations Cup right after. So I think if we feel 6 points here, and Mexico in a really, really good place to qualify.
Definitely. Well, the as far as the list, if you have it, I'm sure it's there. It's everywhere out. Goalkeeper Guillermo Ochoa, Jose Jesus Corona, and Alfredo Talavera. No real surprise there. Defenders: Carlos Salcedo, Diego Reyes, Rafael Márquez, Néstor Araujo, Héctor Moreno, Osvaldo Alanís, Jesús Dueñas, Jesús Gallardo, Miguel Layún, and Luis Reyes. Midfielder: Jonathan Dos Santos, Héctor Herrera, Andrés Guardado, who's injured, Jesús Molina, Luis Montes, Jürgen Damm, Orbelín Pineda, Elias Hernández. And forwards: Carlos Vela, Javier Hernández, Raúl Jiménez, and Oribe Peralta. Naive, let's go into, as far as surprises, Tom said it was very, very expected, and a few defenders, Luis Reyes, that are there. But as far as, your forwards, depending still on Oribe Peralta, Raúl Jiménez haven't had that great of minutes, especially hasn't played well. Javier Hernández and probably just in Carlos Vela, and that's it. I mean, Orbelín can play. Also there, you have Jürgen Damm that can also help on the wing. But as far as, does it look a little light on the forwards? Gio not being called. There really isn't anybody else.
It's worrying. It's a bit worrying. I'm not gonna lie, because look, Tecatito and Chucky Lozano have been some of the best offensive threats in the Osorio era. Before Giovanni came back and Vela also got on the ship. The 2 main ones were Tecatito and Chucky Lozano, and of course these are wingers. These are not your central striker by any means, but they provide a lot in the attack, especially in tight situations. The situation that happened over there in Honduras really stands out. And that was a moment where Tecatito came in and changed the whole game. You're gonna need players that are gonna be able to take on Costa Rica's defense, because I think Costa Rica is gonna sit back and is going to play on the counter. So you got to find those spaces, and you don't have your 2 best options. Now, it all now relies on players like Damm, Elias Hernández, to step up, and let me be honest, Damm is inconsistent with the passing. Sometimes he got great moments, sometimes he has off moments. Against Cruz Azul, I think he should have scored at least 1 goal, and he didn't. Elias Hernández is a good club player, but I don't think he's a good national team player. So that's where the little doubts
give him a chance.
But But it all,
He hasn't been on there. It's his
no,
debut.
so he had his chances when he was over there in Tigres and Morelia and all that, and he didn't step up. Right now in León, the León is playing bad because Elias Hernandez is not stepping up. Elias Hernandez is not the leader that he's supposed to be on the field. So we'll see right now. I mean, those are my first initial thoughts. It's going to be difficult. A lot is going to rely on Carlos Vela, I think. If Carlos Vela's on, then Mexico's in good shape. If he's off, there's going to be certain complications, I think.
There it is. It's like, there's your headline, relying on Carlos Vela in this hex. That's where it's at. Nico, to you, an assessment of what Naive said. Also throw in their goalkeepers. It's like every single time, who's going to be it? Guillermo, which we normally don't struggle on that. But again, Ochoa, Alfredo, Talavera, and Jose de Jesus Corona. Or about any. You there, Nico?
Yeah. I
Okay, go ahead.
think we keep on every time that it's a convocatoria and that we're ready to see this Mexican national team play, we're going to try to guess who Osorio is going to put on the field. And every time the rotaciones come, the changes, and it's a new player. And by this time, I think that's going to be the trend. In these two games, I think there's going to be two different goalkeepers. I don't know who is the favorite. I don't know if there is a favorite because the three goalkeepers are great. Ochoa, for me, of course, he's the European one, the one that's playing abroad, and he's shown time and time again, despite him being on a team that hasn't shown any type of consistency. He has to be the man on defense that has to save Granada. They get rained on every game, pummeled game after game, and Ochoa ends up being the star. But apart from the goalkeeping situation, Naive mentioned a couple of things about El Chapito Montes and Elias Hernandez. My thing with this is that León is not having the greatest season. They are last, if I'm not mistaken. And now you have to think, let's look at some more domestic talent in Pulido or Saldívar, who are Chivas' goal scorers, So why haven't they gotten the chance? I know that Pulido was in the convocatoria for the Iceland game, and so were Chapo Montes and Elias Hernandez, and they have been more part of the process of Osorio's call-ups in the past. But I think this would have been a great time of calling. Giving Pulido a chance maybe, so it's not so Vela reliant. And on top of that, the Tecatito situation is very weird to me because he had originally been brushed off as one of those players that were injured, just like Gio Dos Santos and Marco Fabian. But Tecatito, just like Fabian, actually played this weekend. Fabian was a starter, and Tecatito scored a golazo.
Yeah.
So you'd have to see, and Osorio said it himself, that it was basically because the clubs didn't let him play, and that's something that's kind of weird, that the clubs, that Porto wasn't letting Tecatito go to the national team because this is the important game. And if you think about it, Tecatito, in my opinion, is an undisputed starter. He has to be on the national team. He's come up big many times and over again. So it's going to be interesting to see how they deal without him. And I guess we go back and it's going to be a Vela reliant squad, if you will. I totally agree with Naive.
Very, very good point that you bring up, Nico, because when I was looking at that, Tecatito and then scoring a golazo over the weekend, we get against the sense. Wasn't Osorio there for a week?
And he went to Germany also.
He went to Germany. He was hanging out with Sampaoli, which it's like bad luck Osorio, because Sampaoli has done horrible after he visited him. It's like he brought the 7-0. But I just don't understand. Again, it's another injured and they're playing. And if it's true that the players, and I've had a problem with this, Tom, players not wanting to come because they want to be solidified with their team. And I get, the Vela and what happened, but Ochoa did that. And now what we're seeing, Fabian saying no, because we thought that there was an injury, but now he's playing. And then again, how can a club say no? You cannot, we can't send you a player when it's a FIFA date, when it's a very important. I mean, this isn't just another dead on.
Yeah.
So I'm still dumbfounded in the fact that we're still asking how and why those players are not going to come.
No, I mean, I don't think it was just the club. I think it was a decision between the three parties. I mean, this was the players themselves. I mean, Marco Fabianes had a very serious injury, and yeah, it was a surprise. He played last weekend for Eintracht Frankfurt, and same with Tecatito. I think they just made the decision. I think the reasoning behind the decision, people might not be in agreement with it, but the reasoning behind this decision is that between now and June, mid-June, end of June, however far Mexico go in the Confederations Cup, that it's constant football now. There is no break. Mexico got 2 friendlies before the Honduras and the United States World Cup qualifiers. So I think that Osorio, taking into that account, don't forget, this is a manager who studied physical education, and that was his original, that was his way into coaching. I think he's decided, right, these guys are better off, and the team's better off as a whole over the long term or the middle term if these guys don't play this game. But yeah, I agree with Nico in that, someone like Tecatito especially, because I think you look at Fabian, you look at Giovanni Dos Santos, and realistically, I think Mexico have got players that can come in. I'm not saying they're necessarily at the same level, but they've got similar players. But then you look at Tecatito and you think what he brings into the attack, especially when you're playing 2 teams in Costa Rica and Trinidad who are likely to sit back. You need that attacking spark, that little bit of individual genius. And I think Tecatito's got that. So yeah, it is a surprise, but I do understand it. I understand it from that perspective.
Look, it is a risk. And look, let me put something on the table. If Tecatito plays well from now until June, or even until July, there's a good chance that he'll leave Porto, and that he'll move to a bigger club. If Marco Fabian stays from now to June in Eintracht and does well, because Fabian has been one of the most consistent Mexican footballers in Europe this season. Before that, back injury that he had. So if he plays well from now until June, then he also might have a chance to move on to a bigger club. What has Osorio been saying in the last months? He wants to see Mexican footballers in teams that compete at the highest level. Porto and Eintracht are not that. It gives you a mid-level competition. You want to play high-level competition, there's a chance that you can move to a bigger club, and especially looking at the Tecatito case, which I think is one of the best processes that have been taken in a Mexican footballer.
It just is not consistent. It comes down to, okay, well, Carlos Salcedo hasn't played, and he's there.
Why not take an Hugo Ayala in that case, for example? Carlos Salcedo has been completely erased from the Fiorentina squad.
Yeah. I think it comes back to, and I know I got criticized for playing it, but the depth isn't there for Mexico right now. There isn't the depth, and I don't think okay, Hugo Ayala, I think he's a good player. He's a good Liga MX player. He's got quite a lot of Mexico caps. Salcedo, I think, is also a very good player, but behind that, how many good centre-backs have Mexico got? Still calling up Oswaldo Alanis because there's no other left-footed centre-back out there. To a lack of depth right now in certain positions, and Mexico doesn't have. And Osorio said it the other week. He gave an interview to Marca, which for me was incredible. Some of the things he was saying, about Argentina and Brazil and Mexico not being able to demand any kind of title, because at the end of the day, Brazil's got 100 players playing in Europe at top level, and Mexico's got 13. And he said, we aspire to be champions of tournaments, but we can't demand it from ourselves, even though the Mexican public and press do. He's saying we're still basically behind.
Yeah.
And I think that shows in the call-ups. We can debate every position and say, this guy should be there, that guy should be there. At the end of the day, Mexico's still reliant on these European players. And yeah, obviously, Raul Jimenez not getting minutes for Benfica, it's like, yeah, that's not good. But then again, who else are you going to put in there?
The same can be said about Layun. Layun has had a really erratic season as well, but he is important in this 11 for Osorio.
Yeah, it's just surprising, and when we're looking at that, normally we have players that are performing well when it comes to these very important games. And I can't think of anyone other than maybe, Javier Hernandez, and that's just recently, and in fact, he hasn't scored, but there isn't anyone killing it in Europe right now, as far as maybe that I could think about it. Tecatito is scoring, but he was injured. And
I would say, sorry to interrupt you, Wiso, but Herrera has been pretty consistent in making into that Porto starting 11.
Hector Moreno.
And Hector Moreno for PSV. So I think they're the ones that have been consistently playing and are used to this routine of going in, game out. Naib mentioned it's not the highest level, but at least you're competing every single weekend, and I think that's important, and their leadership is going to be shown on the field. And I think a lot of the success over this weekend is going to fall on exactly Herrera, because now Guardado's out with an injury, which is the big news of the weekend. So who's going to really put the team on their back in the midfield and connect that attack that we want to be so prolific? I think a lot of it is going to fall on Herrera. Maybe Jonathan Dos Santos also is another midfielder that's also had consistent level, and if Villarreal is having one of their best seasons in a really long time, and they're competing against top dogs like Real Madrid, Barcelona, so it's going to be interesting to see how these players perform over these next 2 games, and if they do well within 180 minutes, you can definitely see Mexico successful over the short haul.
Yeah. I think Jonathan Dos Santos, for me, it's a fascinating situation, because if you look at what Osorio constantly says, he talks about going to Europe to be playing at top clubs, to be competing, and you look at Jonathan Dos Santos, he ticks all the boxes, but yet we still kind of don't consider him the starter. So I'm wondering now, with Guardado out, is this Jonathan Dos Santos' moment now, not just to come in and play against Costa Rica, but make an absolute statement. This is a player in his prime. To make an absolute statement that he wants to play, not just for this game, but in the Confederations Cup, and moving ahead to obviously the big one, the World Cup next year. Because he's got all the talent, he's doing what's being asked of him, and what's being asked of all the Mexican players.
Yeah, I mean, I think also real quick with Jonathan. Look, Jonathan played in the Panama game, and you were there, Tom, and the pitch was horrible. It's not the same playing in that pitch and playing at the carpets that you play in Spain. Estadio Azteca's pitch is excellent, so you gotta put him. You gotta put him with Rafa Marquez. I saw Rafa Marquez this weekend, and he was slow. He was really slow. With Rayados took him on, and he just looked lost on the field. And it was because it was just the speed of the game was too much for Rafa. You can't just rely on Rafa in the center. You need a support, and the best support is Jonathan, who was born and raised in La Masia. I mean, it's common sense, I think, there.
Naib, I think something very similar is happening between the Mexican national team and the Argentinian national team, is that just like Mexico's relying on Rafa Marquez, Argentina in a way is kind of has this romantic idea of what Javier Mascherano is, and you can tell that at this point the age is getting to them. They are fantastic players, don't get me wrong. Rafa Marquez is a legend, and undeniably he has and brings something to the table that not any player brings, just like Javier Mascherano. But, mistakes, just like the Atlas game over the weekend, that Rafa Marquez was slow. He wasn't himself, or he wasn't what we idealize Rafa Marquez being like, So if you put them in high-risk situations, especially like, for example, Argentina, I'm going to keep on going back to the analogy. Mascherano hasn't been great for the Argentine national team. He's had slip-ups in the past that have cost Argentina games, like against Peru, which we tied. But we tied or we won. I don't know. Mascherano messed up in that game, and that's what I remember. But same thing for Rafa Marquez, or is Juan Carlos Osorio willing to risk putting a player like that, despite his legacy and how much experience he has, into a starting 11 that in a way needs a win? Because if you fall to top dogs Costa Rica, it might be shaky, especially at Azteca, and you don't want to repeat what happened in the last hex.
Yeah, I think the other part of the conundrum here is Diego Reyes. And I mean, I know a few years ago people said, "Oh, is Reyes the next Rafa?" He's obviously not. I think that question's been answered. But what's the role of Reyes now? I mean, he's starting regularly for Espanyol. He's again answered the questions that were asked of him when he first went over to Europe. There was so many question marks. He didn't do it basically at Porto. He went to Real Sociedad, mixed time there. And, now at Espanyol, he's suddenly showing what he's got. And it's like, I don't know. Obviously, he can't replace Rafa, but what kind of role can he have? Is he going to be involved? Is he not going to be involved? It's. I think that's another interesting question ahead of these games.
And it's quite the game. I mean, Naib kind of just said it. So this is where we kind of go off and really talk about what's coming in that Costa Rica is playing they're inspired. Looking at press conferences, gonna fall back. But again, if you remember a team that has played Mexico recently, in very very important games from in the last hex. Not only obviously did Mexico get the loss in Estadio Nacional in San Jose, Costa Rica, but also when Costa Rica came to to the Azteca and they tied. And I feel that that was the game that Chepo should have been fired. They waited a couple more, but Costa Rica is not going to be an easy, and because they know holding back and looking at a very depleted El Tri, especially up front. We had some problems in the with some players, Guardado not being there, Tecatito not being there. This is not the easy Costa Rica, which we've normally played. A team Costa Rica, I would think we have an advantage, except for the recent. So, how important is this game? Obviously, it's important of getting it, but would this be our hardest game in the Azteca? US is coming up, I'm sure, in June. But as of now, Tom, you said it. If we get this win against Costa Rica, it'd be huge. We haven't won. We tied against Honduras in the Azteca. It was towards the end of the last round, but this is now back in the Azteca. We're in the hexagonal, and Costa Rica's coming up. Anything you could add, Tom, as the important in who we're facing?
Yeah, I mean, Costa Rica are a very good side. I think what's happened with Costa Rica is that Oscar Ramirez has come in, and he's basically, for me, employed similar tactics to what Pinto used when they reached the quarterfinal of the World Cup 2014, specifically the back line of five. So I think that they make themselves very, very difficult to break down. They're a tough team, and at the end of the day, Costa Rica will be looking at this game in the Azteca and thinking a draw is a great result for us.
Mm-hmm.
We're still top. We'll still be top. And I actually spoke to Kendall Watson Kendall.
Yeah.
Watson, sorry, in Monterrey the other week, and he was very forthright. He said, back in the day, we used to take this Mexico game like they were the big giants of the region, and we used to be, a bit timid about, confronting them, not just the players but the fans, the Costa Rican fans as well. And he said, now we go to the Azteca and we believe we can get a result. And I think that's the difference as well. The Costa Rican mentality, not just Costa Rica but other teams in CONCACAF, now go to the Azteca and think, why not? I mean, there's a documentary that came out in Costa Rica this week about the Aztecaso. I mean, they're really kind of bigging up the idea that they can do it again, and they're a good side. I mean, they've got a goalkeeper who plays for Real Madrid. I mean, there's not many teams in CONCACAF that have players that play for those kind of teams. So I think it's a really difficult game for Mexico. I'm fascinated to see what Osorio is going to do. I think he's going to go for the 3-4-3 formation, which is ultra attacking. And I think he's doing that because if he's going to be like, all right, if Costa Rica are going to sit right back, well, we're going to kind of call the bluff and push absolutely, up to, apart from two defenders, we're going to push everyone forward and try and gain the numeric superiority that Osorio talks about so often. So yeah, I think that's how it's going to be. I think Costa Rica are going to sit back, wait for the counter attacks and the set pieces, and Mexico are going to go all out, throwing players forward. So it's going to be interesting.
Very, very interesting game. No one's talked about this. It feels like the Costa Rica just game, because of the refs thing. No Liga MX. Liga MX is dominant, and finally that comes out. But a loss in the Azteca right now, it's like they're coming back up. At least they've lost, and the 7-0 has kind of gone away. It's still in the back of the head, but a loss in the Azteca would be detrimental, not only because of the Azteca, but because, again, it's just how superior Costa Rica would be to win there, Naive.
No, I think you got to respect Costa Rica. I mean, Costa Rica is the best representative of CONCACAF because they reach, they did a great 2014 World Cup, and that base is still present, in this Costa Rica national team. And look, we'll see. Joel Campbell has had an inconsistent season in Portugal, and he has been, one of the main stars up front for Costa Rica. And if he can break through, if he can have a good day, then Costa Rica's attack all of a sudden becomes really dangerous. That's alongside with Brian Ruiz, but Joel Campbell is the guy that breaks defenses with his dribbling. It's really complicated to explain what's going on in Mexico, because the team is actually not training at their training grounds over there, you know, in the Centro de Alto Rendimiento. Right now, they're actually in Cuernavaca, Morelos, an hour or so away from here, from the capital. And they're doing it away because they're sort of distancing themselves from Azteca. So we're not going to go into Azteca until the day of the game. You know, I personally think that it was really important to get the win in Columbus, and I think that consolidated the idea over there with Osorio. But this is a whole different story, because if the result, if the game doesn't go as planned, you know, let's say Costa Rica scores, or Mexico keeps missing chance after chance, like Lax Hexagonal, that Azteca is going to turn against the team. And I think the players are already aware of that. That's why they've been wanting or asking the federation to move away from the Azteca. The Azteca doesn't represent what it used to do, because now most of the base of El Tri plays in Europe. They don't play here in Mexico anymore. The hour is 8 p.m. Why not do it at 12 p.m. or 2 p.m. when it's hot, when it's humid, you can feel the heat? No, they do it at prime time because the television really wants it to be at prime time. But you know, they now have to sort of themselves from Azteca, and that's the key here. If they're able to sort of with Azteca, because it's not the same beating New Zealand than beating Costa Rica. Costa Rica does regain the romance again in Azteca. I think that the romance got lost in the last. There was a divorce going on in the last hexagon, and now we're, you know, so the marriage is trying to restart all over again.
The Azteca is a little jealous that Mexico is in the U.S. a lot. It's like it's in El Amante in the United States, the Azteca. Nico, let's go into how you see this game going. You know, you in what you expect from the team, and not necessarily a prediction, but can it be done? It's going to be a tough game, and you're, you know, in you're looking ahead of the team. How's it going to go?
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be an easy game at all. Of course, these are the best two teams in the final hex. Costa Rica is top for a reason. They have 6 goals in their favor. They tore apart the United States of America, and that's no easy feat. Of course, they were experiencing a very difficult moment, the United States, but Costa Rica has a new look to them, as Naib mentioned, ever since the 2014 World Cup. I want to focus on Joan Venegas, who plays for Minnesota United. He was phenomenal in the United States game. So they're both sides that have heavy artillery in the front. So we can kind of expect a very dynamic game straight from the start. I'm not so sure if Costa Rica is going to sit back from the very beginning, but they might try to surprise Mexico early on, because they do have men up top that can provide that type of football in Venegas, Borges building in the midfield, along with Brian Ruiz. Ureña is usually one of their forwards that has been key, but Joel Campbell, as Naib was saying, I think he's going to be an interesting factor in this game. Joel Campbell hasn't been playing very well with Costa Rica. I would say the United States game was really an abnormal quality, maybe like an extrapolation from how he's been playing for Costa Rica ever since Gold Cup. He didn't do that well. You know, they've been asking more from Joel Campbell. So if he plays like he played against the United States, it's going to be a tough game. I don't think, obviously a loss would be really bad. Mexico doesn't want to lose at home, but I do think if you're comparing it across the board, across all teams, this is the toughest game at the Azteca, because the United States isn't that intimidating United States from the intimidating United States that we've been used to seeing. So this, I think, is the best game we're going to get in the Hex.
You know, I'll take it a step back. I want to believe that Costa Rica, obviously it is, and they beat the U.S. I think the U.S. was already knocked down because of the Mexico loss in Columbus. They have never, won in Costa Rica. Very hard game for them. A Klinsmann that, didn't know what he was doing. He got him fired. I haven't seen Costa Rica take, such an advantage in their qualifying also before the Copa America. Those September games ending the qualifiers, and I don't remember the scores, but it wasn't like Costa Rica was dominating all around. This is Costa Rica's hardest game too. And I also believe they're going to take it. They're going to give the respect that they always do to give Mexico and step back. But we could see Mexico if they play well and they play to the quality. Costa Rica also, but what we've seen before, if anyone that can score against Costa Rica in the past has been a mediocre Mexico going into the Saprissa Stadium and winning, and getting wins in Costa Rica. So yeah, I think this is a match where it will be one of the hardest, but we can see Mexico dominating Costa Rica. That could be a little bit inflated because I don't see them playing a tough teams that they've had before. They also had, I think, Panama friendlies, and the Laxax wasn't that great. You saw what happened in the Copa America completely, what happened to them against the U.S. So we'll see. The pressure's on them too. If they want to be the top team in the CONCACAF, then I think this is a perfect venue for them to see. So ultimately, I'm expecting, I think, a very good game, but I'm not giving so much credit as like this is the best Costa Rica team that we've seen, because I haven't seen that against another team. So, all right, in the chat, people are still talking about Rafa Marquez. Why is he still there? There's a lot of discussions. Steve Graff was mentioning, why haven't we looked at South American Mexican players that are playing, and everybody went and jumped in. Lots and lots of fun stuff on the chat. So let you guys know. Anything else for the game? Interesting, Naive, that you said that, where now Mexico has a theory that about the whole, altitude. They're not training at the Centro Alto Rendimiento in Mexico City. I feel like nobody has really had any evidence of backing up and what's the best way to play in the Azteca. But I guess now Mexico's not even afraid. Also, it's maybe that's it.
Other teams have been doing it to Mexico. They've been training in Cuernavaca, and they only arrive in the Azteca in DF the day of the game, and that's one of the reasons that teams have been finding more success than previously against Mexico. So Mexico now, obviously, and the interesting thing for me is Osorio saying this is coming from the players. He's saying the players are saying, look, it's difficult for us to fly in from Europe and to play at altitude and train at altitude. And the theory is that altitude sickness kicks in after 72 hours, which, if you look at it, is exactly when the game is. So if the European players come in today, 3-4 days later, that's when they're going to get hit by it. So the interesting thing for me is that, the Mexican Federation has spent a lot of money on the training center just outside Mexico City. The national team managers say, oh no, we want to train in Cuernavaca. I don't know. Imagine there are a few eyebrows being raised there. But I think the other question as well is, once you've done that, once you're in Cuernavaca, why don't you just go to Monterrey, where you've got a brand new stadium? Or why don't you come to Guadalajara, where you've also got a brand new stadium? Why don't we take this national team around? We know how many games they play in the States. You know what I mean? They play almost double the amount of games in the States as in Mexico. And then whenever they do play in Mexico, it's almost always in Mexico City. And it's like, is that fair for people in Monterrey? A city of 5-6 million. People in Guadalajara here, 5-6 million. You look at Brazil, Italy, other national teams, they move around during the qualifiers. And I think Mexico should be really seriously considering moving around to different stadiums now.
They did that several games in the 2006 World Cup, the qualifiers, with La Volpe. I remember they went to Puebla, actually. But they did that once they knew they were going to the World Cup. Yeah. So it's like, let's make sure we get in first, and then we can start the tour. Look, at the end of the day, Mexico has to go into this match and feel confident, feel confident that they can win this match. The same confidence they showed in that first half against the U.S. in Columbus, they have to show that at Azteca. If they don't show it, then something's wrong. You can't you're playing at home, you're playing in front of your crowd, probably 80,000 plus, I reckon, in that game on Friday. So it's all about the attitude. And here is where we get questions. Not having Guardado, how does that affect? Because he's one of the leaders. Nico mentioned Herrera. And the thing about Herrera is that we haven't really seen those details from Herrera. It's like, is he really? That's why we're confused when he's captain of Porto. It's like, how does he manage to be captain of Porto? Like, what does he have on the table? We still haven't seen that Herrera. We know that Herrera can be a great midfielder, a great, fast and and great shot and everything, but
When
he's
was the
been
last
really
time we saw it,
inconsistent.
though?
It was in the
I don't
World
remember.
Cup.
Yeah, I don't remember.
And maybe when Lopetegui was FC Porto's coach, we saw bits of it, but
Yeah.
since Nuno Espiritu Santo took over, we haven't seen it that much.
Yeah, those are all good points.
Yeah, I think just one quick thing about the Azteca. Let's not forget the last time Mexico played there, they left the field to booze, and players were absolutely not happy. They came and they gave declarations to us in the press, and they were not happy because they drew 0-0 against Honduras. It was basically a meaningless game, anyways. But that's the Azteca crowd, and I mean, I think that I've got a theory that most of the fans that go and see Mexico in the Azteca are also Club America fans. And I think that because that's where they get the tickets from. And I think Club America fans, you look at the Liga MX, and they're some of the most highly demanding fans that exist, probably the most. They demand the team win the title every single season. They never seem to be very happy. And I think that sometimes translates to the national team. I think a lot of the fans that go to World Cup qualifiers in the Azteca are expecting Mexico to play Costa Rica and be winning 3-0, 4-0 easily. You know what I mean? I just don't think I think the players, I think Mexican football in general has kind of changed the mentality. They know that CONCACAF isn't as easy as anymore, but I don't think the fans are quite kind of yet or reached that stage.
And I think the fans and the press, one alongside the other, they are waiting for Osorio to really mess up again. He's walking on very thin ice, and he's been walking on thin ice, obviously, since the Copa America Centenario. And as much as we want to think that 7-1 goes away, and everybody has their own opinion about that 7-1, of course, and I think it's a footballing mistake, in my opinion, but the man is never going to hear the end of it. He walks through Mexico, I think, and the popular opinion, 7-1 written on his forehead. And that's why the fans boo him, I think, because with every moment of uncertainty that Osorio shows in the team's football, in the way they play, when they don't get the result they want, he's going to get booed. They're demanding, they're relentless, and they will be until Mexico make the World Cup. I think the only way that Osorio can somewhat take away that 7-1 is if he makes the World Cup and then wins that famous fourth game that Mexico has been dying to win for the longest time that they've never won. So I think that would silence the haters on Osorio's part, but he has to do it. He has to show, and there's almost no room for error. There's almost no room for error on the fan side and on the press side for Osorio.
Yo digo que son porque son chilangos. I mean, I'm just kidding. No, it's true. Well, it's definitely going to be fun to see and fun to hear, and it's going to be there. I don't like it that training is in Cuernavaca.
Yeah, well, they didn't let us know, did they?
Now, I mean, I'm not 100% sure. Tom and Naive just let me know. So now I'm scrounging to see how we're going to get to that team. So keep it tuned here, FootMex Nation in Mexican. We'll try to be there. All right, guys. Well, enough of the. Let's just really quick on your predictions.
We'll have to rent a little minibus, the Mexican Soccer Show minibus.
Yeah, Mexican Soccer
Show. Micro.
Or journalists from the in English, the journalists that cover Mexican national in English, just a little bus of us trying to make it. All right.
Just getting rejected. No press passes. No idea how we're going to get anywhere. But we've got a bus.
We'll figure it out.
We've got a bus.
Let's do quick predictions because everybody's kind of asking what's going to happen. Put you guys on the spot. So we'll so think about that. I'm going to go. I think Mexico. It's gonna work, and it's gonna be like a 1-0. But I think that Mexico wins with 1-0 there. What about you guys? Let's go. Let's start with Mr. Naib. ¿Qué pasa?
I'll go with 3-1. 3-1 for Mexico.
There it is, Mr. Nico.
I think it's gonna be a fairly contested match. 1-1.
Tie.
Oh
man,
the draw.
Tom,
I'll go 2-1. I just think, just to add, I just think these are the matches where Osorio is very good, and I think we've seen, especially in the away games in qualifying, this is where, you know, he comes into his own, these tight games, and I think his formation can make a difference on Friday.
Well, there it is. Nobody has Mexico losing. So I guess we're good there, and hopefully let's see what happens. Guys on the chat, send us your score right now, and what do you think is going to happen in this game? And we'll see. Maybe look back to see who's right. Guys, let's go into Liga MX. Switch quick. I know we spent a lot on the Mexican national team. Let's go right into it. America and Pumas. I have to say, I really, really enjoyed that game. It was a great, great game for whatever reason, just kind of going back and forth. America coming back, the changes. I saw La Volpe making, quick changes because of the Tico player wasn't able to play in the minute. Putting Diego on the in switch foot on the other side. I was like, what is he doing? And then Diego doing an amazing job still. What the kid that's 16, he keeps doing and impressing in what he's doing. I'm glad that he was out in the 55th minute. So just so much about this game that we can even spend an hour for. My quick things, how playing in the list, and Nico, who'd you say about in Argentina who was slow Rafa Marquez?
Mascherano.
Yeah, it's like Mascherano, Rafa Marquez, and Verón. If they ran, who would win? Because they're completely, it's like that. That's how I was thinking about that. But exciting game. Let's go with you, Naive, especially with America and being this clásico that they have. What did you expect of the game, and was it fair? Which I believe, the America deserved the win. And I feel a little more momentum now. Americanismo coming back, and hopefully the game ended with 7 Mexican players, if I'm not mistaken, which usually field 10 extranjeros. Naive, your thoughts on the game overall?
No, overall, I think it was a good result for America. Getting the win in the Clásico Joven, and then also now in the Clásico Capitalino. That sort of gives support to La Volpe's tenure at America. It was shaky at first. We really didn't know what was going to happen, especially after that hard Christmas day over there at El Volcán. Look, what is remarkable here with America is just that Edson Alvarez and Diego Lainez, who are two, youth academy players that feel the colors, those are the guys that are really pulling the strings together. Mm-hmm. And of course, Oribe Peralta mentioned in our Facebook post, Diego Lainez is inspiring me. Diego Lainez is giving me more guts to go forward and do games like he did yesterday. I mean, Peralta was huge yesterday, not only on the scoring sense of things, but also on the defense. Going back and marking. I think Pumas deserve. They did great in the second half. It was all Pumas there. And Nico Castillo is just wonderful to watch live because the guy is just gonna put the ball in all the time. But also Marchesín got a good, Marchesín had an error in that second goal for Nico.
Yeah, it was his fault.
But then he had several saves that were just fantastic, especially that Britos one in the corner. That was a goal. And Marchesín, blocked it and everything. So look, what I take away from this match is how this essence of the kids, of Edson and Diego are sort of pushing America in the right direction. We'll see if they reach the Liguilla, because I think it's going to be really heated, that battle to enter the Liguilla, especially the last, I'd say from 6, 7, and 8. Those are going to be really tight. I mean, there's a lot of teams that are in the mix to get those spots.
And I feel like Diego Lainez, after he left in 50 minutes, which I agree he should have been subbed out. I'm glad that they're not like putting 90 minutes, even though I think he could have done it. It almost changed America after that 55th minute, kind of the possession that he had. Is everywhere. America definitely surprised me. I really thought that they were going to go in there, but to you guys, Nico, for you, is this great momentum for America? The fans definitely deserve it after the debacle was happening. Maybe that break kind of helped, but I really do feel that Volpe's hand, especially starting of what happened. Miki Arroyo, coming back and being the leader that we haven't seen in America. to you, is America finally getting that little momentum? I know it's only after one win, but it was a very good display.
I think they finally have caught up to the rest of the teams. Let's remember that they didn't have a preseason. So now I think they've really gotten the ball rolling, and they're playing the best soccer that they have all season. And apart from Diego Lainez and Edson Alvarez, who have been phenomenal, and La Volpe is going to be on his grave, and he's going to be saying, that Diego Lainez and Edson Alvarez, I put them on the field. And apart from them, Cecilio Dominguez, putting him back, and when he's coming back, we talk about Osvaldito Martinez leaving and big names leaving America, but even bigger names arrive. And Cecilio Dominguez has come up big in, I want to say, every game he's played in, but I obviously don't want to be so absolute, but in every single game that he's played, he makes an impact. And that last goal, the game winner that he scores, and it's obviously there's poor defending alongside that, but Cecilio Dominguez is tearing apart defenses and making them fall into this nightmare when they have to pick him up and mark him. He's a phenomenal player. They gave him number 10, and he does not shy away from the big moment. Cecilio Dominguez came to this club to do great things, and has convinced the fan base from the get-go that he's the man to bring to make America great again. There we go.
Johnny's tagline. All right, Tom, I have to ask you about Pumas, because there's no way Paco Palencia thinks that Alcoba and Verón give him any kind of security back.
No, it's a worry. I think they conceded 17 goals, no?
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously that's not good enough. I think we saw in a couple of the goals of America goals that there was all over the place. So yeah, I mean, I think Pumas, what Palencia has done this season, they're looking like, I like the identity that he's given them. They look good. Abraham, great, just really, really good kind of holding midfielder, distributing the ball. That pass for I think Castillo's second goal to Van Rankin, and then who crossed it, and it was unbelievable. I didn't see it live, but you saw the replay, and he did the Rabona, and it was amazing. It was amazing. But I think
Rabona. It didn't look like a Rabona to me until somebody pointed it out. Like, whoa,
yeah, it was Rabona. Yeah,
I didn't see it until the replay. Yeah. I'm like, it looked like just a normal pass. I'm like, why didn't you even do a Rabona? Because just hit it with your left foot. But
yeah, but I mean, Palencia took a risk for me as well. I mean, he dropped Mendoza to the bench, the usual left back. And he played
Gallardo
as a left back. And he played obviously Britos and Castillo up front together. So he really went for it against America. I think he felt America were weak and they were in a difficult place. But I mean, going back to what Nico said and what Naive said, I think you've got Cecilio Dominguez. Let's not forget as well, he's only 22. So we're talking about obviously Edson Alvarez. But Cecilio Dominguez is 20. He's 22 years old. He's got a big future. But if you've got Dominguez, Romero, and Oribe Peralta kind of pulling the strings, up front, you're going to score goals. And I think America, some of the time, they didn't play beautiful football. They weren't absolutely amazing to watch. But at the end of the day, they took the chances, and I think that in the end was the difference between the two teams. If you're going to make a complaint against Pumas right now, are they too reliant on Nico Castillo? Not in terms of just him getting the goals, but they're always looking for him. They're always looking for Castillo. Can't blame him really the way he's playing, but it makes you think if Castillo gets injured or something happens there, then would Pumas be able to cope?
Yeah, real quick about Edson Alvarez, because there's this debate then about why is Edson already a senior national team call-up and not Cesar Montes? Well, the thing about Edson is that he can play as a center back, he can play as a right back, he can play as a holding midfielder. And he's not even 20 years old. And he's playing for Club America, which is so much pressure each day. And the guy looks like he was born for it. That's why Edson Alvarez is already a senior national team call. That's why Osorio really likes him. Is that versatility. Those players that can play in different positions. And I mean, it looked like he was a natural right back against Pumas. And it's not easy because you had Ravelo, you had Gallardo, you had Barrera, you had Nico Castillo. I mean, there was a lot of attackers over there with Pumas.
polyfunctional,
Fully functional.
versatile. That's the typical guy that JCO loves.
Yes. Not to make fat. I mean, Diego Lainez to the Gold Cup. I'm thinking. I mean, the way that he's playing.
Not
Well, I mean, come on, guys. Let's hype this guy up. The guy's left foot. He can play great with the right. I'm sorry. I'll throw that he'll call him in. And then La Volpe said, "See, I've still contributed to the national team." What other games? I know we don't. We have a few minutes to go, but let's talk about really quick. Tom, Chivas holding on to the liderato. Again, Alan Pulido scoring, which it wasn't the greatest of goals, but again,
It's a pretty good goal.
showing off that Chivas is keep on going. It was Veracruz, I get it, especially all the drama that happened. But you got to give up. Still, Chivas is definitely contending and scoring. Which I remember a few weeks back, I kept saying this team doesn't play in the second half. I made it corrected. Good to see Chivas in that very in that first place. I've always said when Chivas is number one in the league, I feel the national team we can see something on there, but we're better off. They're calling me Americanista on the chat too, so I'm gonna get some love for Chivas. So Tom, really quick, obviously Chivas and what we see started, especially coming up from next week, it's gonna get harder. Veracruz top of the bottom of the league, but it was good to have them. It was kind of like a blessing that they didn't play Tigres on that weekend, and another keep Veracruz on the top.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think Chivas and play, do a do, no? They can go up. That's how they play. I don't think they're scared of anyone. I think Chivas have got a team now that can defeat any team in Mexico. I mean, the top of the league for a reason. I'd say, obviously expected him to beat Veracruz, but I think my main take from that game is that you watch Pulido's goal, and I thought it was a brilliant goal. And I think it just shows the confidence that he's got right now. And you look at Chivas over the last few years, I mean, you could even argue 10, 20 years, and you look at how many top strikers they've had. And they've had Chicharito and they've had Omar Bravo, and that's it. And I think Chivas' big problem of late has been a number 9. Who's gonna get you, 8+ goals a season? And they've just simply not had that. So I think that Alan Pulido now, he's coming into the form. I think a lot of people forget as well, everything that he's been through. I think he only turned 26 last week, and he's like, he's won the Greek League, he's won the Liga MX with Tigres. He got engaged and had that cancelled recently. He's obviously gone through the transfer debacle. He's gone a multi-million-dollar transfer back to Chivas. He's been at a World Cup. He's been kidnapped. I mean, he's been through. He's been through a lot of things in his young life, and I think that now he's finding his finding his space at Chivas, and he's confident now. And I think for Chivas, it could be the missing piece of the jigsaw.
We'll go. Good to see. I know we got
real quick also on Chivas. There's a big difference when you have Rodolfo Pizarro instead of Gullit Peña. I mean, last season Gullit Peña destroyed a lot of Chivas momentum, especially because it's a speedy, team based with Saldívar, Pulido, and also Chofis there now that he's getting consistent playing time. What Rodolfo Pizarro does in that team is what the new number 10s do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why right now we mentioned, well, why is Luis Montes in this color? Well, it could have been Pizarro, or it could have been Gutierrez, but a special talent there with Pizarro that he's also a major reason why Chivas is at top of the table right now.
Good.
I think Chivas. I called the game on Saturday, and to me, it seems that Chivas could even go a further level from a lethal point of view. In the first 10 minutes of the game, it was overwhelming how much Chivas was dominating Veracruz, yet the Port City team really weathered the storm, and they didn't let Chivas grow. They kind of brought it to a halt after 10 minutes. And if Chivas could learn to be lethal, to punish in their best moments, I think they could easily win the league. But they did let Veracruz into the game as it went on, and they needed an individuality from their best striker to win the game. And then Saldivar's goal came from a corner kick when the game was basically already over. But although Veracruz didn't have clear-cut chances, they were putting pressure on the Chivas back line. And Veracruz and Chivas won because they were playing Veracruz. No offense to any Tiburones fans, but
there aren't any, Nico.
I think if they want to get to that top level to really win the league championship, they need to put away their chances at their best moments. They could have won the game in the first half, and it had to come all the way until the second half. I think there's still room for improvement, but they're not first place just because, they're playing great soccer. It's dynamic. It's fun to watch. But there still is room for improvement for Chivas. I don't want to talk them up too much. Of course, they're super leader, but they're not where they want to be yet, I don't think.
Tough test coming up. I mean, they got the Copa MX match in Monterrey against Rayados. And then they play against Tigres, and they still have to play against Pachuca, so those are going to be interesting games.
All right, well, Chivas, America, we really don't have time to talk about anybody else. I really thought León could go 3 weeks without losing, but they lost. It's over. It's that they're gone. But really quick, before we go, Nico, you were talking in Mexico is like law and order. I mean, they just want to rule right now with what happening in games. And I was chatting with you, for those of you that don't know, with Boselli being suspended 1 game for that, I think was ridiculousness, and scoring with his hand. What is happening, especially with the with the refs demanding they didn't. Are we giving too much power to them now, or do we see something brewing with the players? Because it feels like the refs now can do whatever they want, and it wasn't like they were doing that great of a job anyway.
The refs have opened a Pandora's box to anything that can happen, and watch the law come down full force on them. I want to bet that something is going to happen to the referees, because you can't expect them to be perfect. They're referees. They're human. Human error is part of being you're going to make mistakes, even though if you're a referee, no matter what type of job you're holding. So there's going to be some extra scrutiny on the refs. But they did miss, and especially coming out of the strike, they missed big calls like in the Morelia and Puebla game, a foul, an apparent foul from the goalkeeper of Morelia on his own defender. He lost the ball. You can look at that play hundreds of times, just like Jose Saturnino Cardoso did, and it's not going to be a foul. Puebla have declared themselves, have written a statement against Perez Duran, who was a referee in that game. And then we look back at the Boselli thing. How can you possibly get a 1-match ban for that? I'm going to talk about this more in depth in my Corner of Controversy segment for tomorrow. But first of all, he apologized. Did Thierry Henry apologize? Or why are we apologizing for something that, he didn't even intentionally do? It's not like, he was trying to trick the ref and be like, hey, golazo, hope nobody saw that. You could tell that he willingly went forward with his head to the ball, and something which is a yellow card offense in a game for an unintentional handball, yet deliberate like it was, and it shouldn't have been called, is getting a 1-match ban? Is the Comisión Disciplinaria thinking he was trying to cheat?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's the criteria. I've said this over and over again. It changes from week to week with the Comisión Disciplinaria. There's no standard. So, I don't know what's going on. It sometimes it baffles me.
No, it's I think it was a bad week as well. I mean, coming right off the back of the referee strike, which was negative. It was another negative news story for Mexico. And then you look this weekend and you look what happened outside the Pumas ground with, fans throwing rocks at police. journalists are there recording, and then they try and take away the cell phones from the journalists. You know, Cecilio Dominguez getting hit with a cup of beer. Then you look at in Tijuana with Miguel Herrera, who's calling people out again in the stands. It's like, I don't know. It's something that they have to crack down on. They have to improve. I don't know, the security, the PR, just step everything up surrounding the league.
Tom, and I know we can talk about this whole for another hour, but because of what the ref strike and everything, and now Rafa Marquez's leadership, and do you see that kind of brewing now with the players and the power that they could have with this, you know, what the refs did, and then
yeah, I mean, obviously Rafa Marquez has been meeting with captains of other teams, meeting with the vice captains. You know, he's got to make sure that all the players are in agreement first. That's not going to be easy, but I see it as a wider issue. I think Mexican football's in flux. I think Televisa's declining in Mexico. If you look at the headlines going on, it seems like Televisa are losing the power that they once had. Mexico's opening up, not just in terms of TV, but in terms of a lot of other industries as well. And I see football as part of that. And I think the referees, independent commission is one facet of that. I think the referees commission, the players commission, is going to be another facet. I think journalists as well should kind of get together and demand that things are done better. I think, you know, from the security point of view, I think, you know, fans themselves should be, you know, in other countries there's fans commissions. I mean, you know, to guarantee that the authorities are doing the job in terms of providing a safe environment to go to the game, and so that we don't see, you know, Tigres against Veracruz scenes, we don't see Pumas against America scenes. So yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of events like this referee strike in the next couple of years.
It gets interesting. Never know.
And real quick on other issues is this idea of foreign investment in Liga MX is something that we just don't see. But it's interesting, the story that's going on in San Luis, with Atletico Madrid is actually supporting the Atletico San Luis club over there, because that is rare. You know, you don't see, international, this is Spanish investment, of course. It's not Qatari or Arab Emirates, but it is foreign, so it's like, it's not local. So we'll see how that goes, and if that sort of starts a trend, because, hey, I'm pretty sure people would like, someone would like to have a team in Cancun, no? With Atlantis already there, with, maybe some foreign investment over there, do something special. Cancun could be the next big thing in Liga MX if there's foreign investment. But we'll have to see.
All right, well, we'll definitely have to see. I know we definitely ran over, but we want to make sure. The game, Mexico versus Costa Rica, I have at 8:30 Pacific. Or is that 8:30 on Mexico City time? Definitely gotta look. It's a late game.
I think it's 8:50. 8:50 local
time. So.
It'll start between 7 and 9:30, 10ish.
They like those 36 too, like 8:36 or 9:36, and we'll see where it's at. So definitely hit there and watch. I know obviously if you follow Nico on Twitter, Nico Cantor 1. Nico, also, I know you have your Facebook. It's all Nico Cantor, right? 1?
Everything is Nico Cantor 1. Okay. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
All right. Well, there you go. And obviously, doing it on Facebook Live was very, very fun to watch there. So, anything? Obviously, there's no Liga MX, but what's the next game, Nico, for you?
We've got MLS this Saturday on SAP. We've got New York Red Bulls against RSL, who just fired their head coach. So it's going to be a great match to watch on SAP if you want to hear it in English. I'll be on the call with Ramsés Sandoval and Guadalupe Venegas.
I don't understand why MLS doesn't stop for that FIFA break. It's like everybody stops.
Yeah, I guess they've got their season started. It's an unorthodox calendar, and maybe some teams aren't affected by it that much.
Maybe not, but it looks like the players that they brought. So interesting too, US. I think it's going to be an interesting week for them too. I mean, very, very important games that are coming up for them too. Our rivals, los gringos. All right, guys. Well, this has been another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. Thank you to Naive, Nico, and Tom. As far as what's coming up, I know that I'll be traveling to Mexico to give you guys, obviously what's happening in Mexico in this game, giving you guys news on Costa Rica, and then all of us. I know with the Mexican Soccer Show, keep the Twitters open for the line of communication with us. Definitely see what we have. Again, thank you so much, Nico. Watch Nico's Corner of Controversy, which is hilarious. I definitely enjoy this new segment that he's doing with FoodMex Nation. So keep an eye out there. But lots and lots of coming up. And here it goes, guys. A ver cómo hablamos next week. And we'll see the game before Trinidad if Mexico is able to beat Costa Rica. Have a wonderful, wonderful night. And thank you to all who joined the chat. Please don't forget to share this. Tell all your friends about this podcast. And obviously all the social media handles of the Liga MX in English that we all tweet as. Have a wonderful